So without further ado, I want to introduce our speaker for session number 4, which is around ethical leadership, transparency, and the fight against corruption. I know we have all interacted with corruption in one way or another, and the person or the gentleman I want to introduce here is representing the CEO of EACC, Mr. Abdi Ahmed Mohamud, and his name is David Nyaga Kaforo. He is a serious man. I think when they decided to pair me as moderator, they looked for someone who looked like me. He is David Nyaga Kaboro, Order of the Grand Warrior. He's an OGW, an advocate of the High Court of Kenya, having been admitted in 2001. I'm sure some of our mentees were still ideas by then, after which he went into practice, private practice, until October of 2006, when he joined the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, which is the predecessor to the EACC that, as we currently know, in the Legal Services Directorate. David has served in very many positions, a testament to his hard work and his professionalism. He has been an evidence analyst, he's been a corruption reports analyst, he's been a legal researcher, and also personal assistant to the CEO. He's currently the Deputy Director in charge of Ethics Development and Monitoring under the Directorate of Ethics and Leadership, who is therefore very well placed to speak to us about ethical leadership, transparency, and the fight against corruption. I know we will be continuing this discourse in the afternoon in the panel discussion. So ladies and gentlemen, put your hands together for Mr. David Kaforo.
Thank you very much, Mr. Moderator, for the kind words and the very elucidate introduction. From the anti-corruption body, that is the EACC, we want to say we are really thankful to the ICS for the continued partnership. We have had many occasions together, and you always invite us to your sessions. I know we already have even a working MOU as we speak, which we finalized sometimes last year. And that kind of partnership should continue. It is giving us and it is bearing fruits. As he said, my name is David Nyaga Kaboro, but today I'm wearing the shoes of the CEO, who was actually supposed to be here, Mr. Mohamud Abdi. Unfortunately, he could not manage, so he requested that I kindly represent him in this session, and I'm happy to do that. So any mistake or any error or any miscommunication that I make will be purely mine. It will not be for the CEO. I want to appreciate the chief guests from India, CS Pawan, and the other delegate from India. Welcome to Kenya. Tunasema karibuni. The chairman, Mr. Joshua Wambua. I think I knew you quite a long while ago when you were quite a young man. And I'm happy to see that you have now grown a bit older. I think I also joined the institute sometimes in 2006 when Joshua was, the kipara had not extended that far. But I'm happy to see that you are steering the institute well. So Chairman, thank you so much. The CEO of the ICS, the council members and the members at large, asanteni sana for the invite. I'll be talking about the fight against corruption and the topic that we were given, which resonates very well with the theme of this workshop, and also on what we do as a commission, is ethical leadership, transparency, and the fight against corruption. Members, as you know, fighting corruption sometimes can be a lonely venture. It can be a very difficult venture. It is also very expensive. And we don't waste any chance when we are given a chance like this one to explain what we do, what are our achievements, which we are very proud of, and also to share with you what are our challenges and the environmental situation out there when it comes to the fight against corruption. On matters of ethical leadership and transparency, I know the previous speakers have done enough justice on that, including CS Pawan. I actually noted that most of the things I would have wanted to talk about also, he talked about them. So I will not, in fairness, I will not again repeat for that because we are also pressed for time. But in terms of the outline that I want to take us through this afternoon, but I'll do that very briefly. I will share with you some very few reflections on governance in Kenya. Of course, I will definitely touch on the EACC, its mandate, the strategic focus, and a few achievements. What are the ideals for good governance and transparency? The strategic approaches to good governance. And then the threats, what are the impediments that are there to achieving good governance and transparency? And maybe also a few minutes of sharing with you or seeking your minds on how the Institute can support the fight against corruption and entrenching governance in Kenya. When I come to the reflections that I had in mind, I wanted to share a comment or an extract from a judgment that was given some times ago in 2012, in this case of Trusted Society of Human Rights versus Attorney General and another. And this is what it says, which I will paraphrase, that Kenyans were singularly desirous of cleaning up our politics and governance structures by insisting on high standards of personal integrity among those seeking to govern us or hold public office. They intended that Chapter 6 and Article 73 will be enforced in the spirit in which they included them in the Constitution. The people of Kenya did not intend that these propositions or on integrity and suitability for public offices should be suggestion. They did not intend that they shall be mere suggestions, superfluous or ornamental. They did not intend to include these provisions as lofty aspirations. Kenyans intended that these provisions on integrity and suitability for office, for public and state offices, should have substantive bite. In short, what the people intended is that these provisions will be enforced to ensure good governance in the public will be put into practice. Those were the words of a judge in that decision. The CKRC, which is the body that we had put in place before we came up with the Constitution in 2010, did a very elaborate report. And in one of the pages, and this is at page 221, they describe what leadership and integrity mean. Remember, our Chapter 6 of the Constitution is titled Leadership and Integrity. And what it means is that leadership must go hand in hand with integrity. PSR1 described what is integrity. So what the aspiration of the country was that as a leader, as you exercise leadership, you must also do that with integrity. So we can have a person who demonstrates leadership qualities, but if they lack integrity, then that kind of leadership is deficient. We can have leaders who demonstrate integrity, but they don't have leadership qualities. Again, we say that kind of leadership is deficient. So we say leadership which is bestowed maybe by law or by a certain qualification must go hand in hand with integrity. And this is what they intended to be included in the Constitution. That being the case, I wanted to share with you just about 4 photographs, which have been making the news in Kenya very recently. On the one hand, we see somebody being arrested for embezzlement of around 600 million shillings. How much is Kenya sharing 600 million? I know in your profession as corporate or the secretaries, I know maybe you encounter these amounts of money on a day-to-day basis. Some of us, no. I don't know. I have never seen 1 million shillings together, personally. So I was imagining somebody has 600 million shillings somewhere. And this is money meant to develop a certain rural area. This is Turkana. You can imagine what 600 million can do in a county like Turkana. Somebody flagged about 10,000 fake certificates, academic certificates. These are certificates that are being held by people holding public office, whether in the public sector or in the private sector. What does it tell us about integrity and leadership in Chapter 6 of the Constitution? To an extent that even the US has now raised alarm on our title deeds. You saw that headline a few weeks ago, yeah? The US has actually alerted its citizens that as you go buying land in that country, you have to take other measures to verify those titles, because people who are sitting in public offices cannot be trusted to issue a valid title. You may buy a title, you may buy land, you get a title, go through all the steps, pay everything that is required, only to realize that that certificate is fake. You can imagine what that means for integrity in this country. And very sad, the case of the Cusco. I'm sure this is a union or a circle that is being managed by some of our professionals who may even be seated here. Do you have somebody from Cusco? I hope not. Yeah? But you can imagine the newspapers were saying we have lost about, how much was it? In billions, not in millions. I think it was 13 billion. 13 billion in one circle. So you can imagine these are people's investments that are being plundered by just somebody seated in that office. It is a very sad state of affairs. So these are some of the reflections I want us to think about as we look at the provisions on integrity. And remember, these things are not being perpetuated by the local Wanjiko out there. It is somebody who is learned, somebody who has gone to school, somebody who has gone through the system in terms of being vetted, somebody seen to be fit for that position, but those are the things they do in the office. EACC, we are a constitutional commission under Article 79 and also Section 3 of the EACC Act. In terms of a structure, it adopts the same structure of constitutional commissions as in the Constitution. I think this will be a topic in the afternoon when we look at how we are constituted. We have a chairperson, 4 commissioners, and we have the CEO and then the secretariat. Headquartered in Nairobi, but we have presence in about 11 regional offices. We report to Parliament through annual reports, quarterly reports, or ad hoc reports as may be required. In fact, like this week, we have been asked to submit some report on counties in the coast region. And in terms of staff, we are currently around 800, which I think is a good thing. We have all along had staff shortages. I wouldn't say this is sufficient. It is still work in progress. The Commission enforces a huge number of legislation. I think this is the only body in the country that has over 5 laws to enforce. Apart from Chapter 6 of the Constitution, we have the EACC Act, we have the ASECA, Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Act. The ASECA contains the offenses of corruption and economic crimes. It provides for the investigative aspects and the penal consequences. The Public Officer Ethics Act, I'm sure you know what it provides for. It includes the issues of declaration of income, assets, and liabilities, and also the Code of Conduct for Public Officers. Same case with the Leadership and Integrity Act, which was meant to apply to state officers. The Anti-Bribery Act is a fairly new legislation of 2016. And as you're all aware, we also have something that is in the pipeline called the Conflict of Interest Law that recently the President took back to Parliament. I have been very central in that, together with one of your members. I have seen her, Madam Sophia. Sophie, I don't know whether you are still in the house. Yeah, thank you. She has been the one leading that aspect. So if you have any hard questions on that, don't direct them to me. One of your members is well versed on that. We have other laws that also have a bearing on anti-corruption, such as the PPADA. This is the law on procurement, the Public Finance Management Act, the Proceeds of Crime and Anti-Money Laundering Act, and various other procedural laws that we have. EACC undertakes 4 principal functions: law enforcement, which includes investigations, asset tracing, asset recovery, disruptions. Then there is prevention, which entails corruption risk assessments, systems reviews, system examinations, and also issuing advisories on how to revise systems of governance. The other one is public education and awareness, where we undertake sensitizations, trainings, media outreach. And then lastly, the promotion of ethics, where we do advisories on ethics. We issue cautions and notices. We also do integrity vetting. This is for persons who are being appointed to state and public offices. We develop and monitor enforcement of codes of conduct and ethics, and the various disclosures that are there in the anti-corruption fight, such as declaration of income, assets, and liabilities, the conflict of interest registers. For those of you in the public sector, you will know and you will understand them. The gift registers. Recently, we had a very high-profile case that went to Parliament, you remember? And somebody was being asked whether they declared gifts that were given somewhere in Kalenjin land in terms of cows. And they were saying they did not declare, they did not find the need to declare. So those are some of the things that we do in terms of promotion of ethics. We have a strategy that we adopt based on the law and our mandate, and also our corporate arrangements. We tend to prioritize high-impact investigations as a strategy. And when we talk about high-impact investigations, that high impact is determined by a number of factors. This includes the personalities involved. So what happens, for example, is if we get a case or a report touching on a governor, an MCA, a clerk, we will prioritize more on the governor before we go down that level, unless, of course, they are connected. The value involved. So if somebody has been, or the report touches, or the allegation is about 12 billion in Cusco, or 50,000 at the ICS, we'll definitely go for the 12.5 billion at Cusco, the 50,000 shillings. We can use other strategies. Then there is the issue of public interest. Some cases may not involve high personalities, they may not involve lots of money, but they possess high-value public interest. An example being maybe bribery in the hospitals, because it can affect a lot of people. The amounts involved will be kindogo, but because of the public interest nature of that case, then the Commission also tends to prioritize those things. The second strategy on asset tracing and recovery, sometimes we don't want to prioritize much on investigating for purposes of prosecuting you to be jailed and all that. But we can also focus on the assets that you have acquired out of corrupt transactions. And here, we do it through various ways. We target what we call unexplained wealth or corruptly acquired assets. You may have assets which you yourself cannot explain. And the law allows that the commission can institute proceedings for recovery of not corruptly acquired assets, but unexplained wealth. So the commission will do an analysis, give you a notice, you have ABCD, can you please explain how you acquired these assets? And in most instances, 99% of cases that we have used this procedure, the targets or the respondents are not able to explain. Somebody will tell you, oh, I have been rearing chicken, oh, I have been selling sugarcane, Can that accumulate to 100 million in 2 months? No. So those are procedures that we do at targeting unexplained wealth, and we have actually recovered quite a lot on that basis. Then on prevention, of course, I talked about promoting institutional and personal integrity through many measures such as training, sensitizations. We do that through prevention. Then the last strategy is the partnerships approach. So we engage partners, high-value partners, who help us in various areas of operations. So what we do is to collaborate, we coordinate, so that we put together our synergies in terms of the fight against corruption, and it is something that has really worked well for us. This slide, I just posted there for some of the achievements that we have made over the years. Talking about the assets recovered, the convictions, the loss averted. When you talk about averting loss, this is where we have really not prosecuted anybody, but due to the interventions that we have taken, people abandon those schemes, and the money that they had targeted, we treat it as averted loss or saved amounts. I wanted us to talk about what are the ideals for good governance and transparency. But I said here that CS from India, Bwana Pawan, already talked about some of these things. What is integrity? We say it's doing the right things in the right way. In fact, we say the test of integrity is doing what is supposed to be done even when nobody is watching you, nobody is following you up, and there is no expectation of any reward. So you still do right, irrespective of whether somebody is watching or not. And we look at that as integrity. The rule of law, where we say that no one is above the law, because when we have individuals who think they are above the law, what they do is to breed impunity. And then what impunity brings is chaos in this country. So as long as we treat everybody to be subject to the laws of Kenya, that would be a very good idea for good governance. Transparency, and we say this is the quality of being honest and being open. Accountability is to accept responsibility for your actions, including accepting responsibility for any consequences of the actions that you take. Equity, being fair and impartial. Where we have imbalances, we acknowledge them and we adjust. Equality, we provide equal opportunities to everyone and protect people from discrimination. And then the aspect of human rights, which is about according inherent human rights to all individuals without any selective approaches. Public participation. We need to ensure that the people are engaged in decision making. And these are principles that have been entrenched in our constitution, in our various laws, and the courts are really, really adamant on this issue of participation of the public in decision making. It's a good idea for good governance. Let the people tell us, let the people be involved, let them assist in making those decisions. And do that. If you look at the MOU that we developed some time ago between ourselves and the ICS, the Institute, we have elaborated on a number of strategies. Believe you me when I tell you that behind every corrupt transaction, there is a professional. There must be a professional. There is always a lawyer, but not Mr. Kajama, whom I have seen in this room. I have not seen him in many of those things. But there is always a lawyer behind any corrupt transaction. So for the institute, you know, you sit in those boardrooms where those things are being cooked. You can frag those things out. When things reach the level of investigations, please help us to have good quality evidence and good witnesses. Report these things. The laws require reporting of some of these transactions. We look upon you to enforce or to strictly enforce the applicable codes of conduct and ethics, also adhere to professional standards. You establish strong internal control systems. As our delegate from India, I think she has taken us through those things. I will not want to repeat that. Encourage and protect whistleblowing. We have to protect the people who make these reports. Some countries have now gone to ahead and said, if you report something is recovered, 5% is yours. I was thinking about the level of industry in Kenyans, if we were to have those kind of provisions. So if you help us to recover 1 billion, 5% becomes yours. See, some countries have those kind of laws. I think the United States is one of them. I don't know what is the practice in India. Do you have that kind of thing? I know Kenya, we have something more similar, I think, in the tax laws. If you help the KRA to recover some tax, you can get 5%, but only up to a maximum of, I think, 2 million. There is a law like that. Eh? And if you didn't know, please know it is there. So you can target your institutions first, because they are the ones who run away with our taxes. So tell KRA, and then let KRA give you a small bit of that amount. Then leverage on technology, I think you have talked about that. But more importantly, we have to guide public participation. The public, the common Wajiko out there, is looking upon us as the professionals to guide in engagement with the government in this legislative decision making. When they are making their budgets, we must guide them how they are going to do it. It's not just about making noise, but they must make strategic interventions and participation procedures so that that public participation has quality. So I think that is all that I had. What I had planned is that we open up some of those things for discussion, but because of time, kindly allow me to sit down at this point, and thank you very much for listening to me. Asante.
Fantastic. Thank you very much.